Hi guys, my name is Victoria, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Panama versus the United States. So I went to Panama about 2 months ago, so this is going to be a kind of a recount of my experiences while being down there. So, without further ado, here is my discussion question to start us off. Out of all of Hofstede's insight dimensions, which do you believe to be the most important to a country's success economically? And then which do you believe to be the least important? So you guys don't forget to respond to that after the presentation is done. So, these are the 6 cultural dimensions. Be sure to remember this. There's power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. So this is an outline of Panama versus the United States. Panama is in the blue and the United States are in purple, and the next couple of slides are going to get into more detail on what those mean. So power distance essentially determines whether or not a country is okay with power. Panama has a high score, so they accept hierarchical order, whereas the United States has a lower score. Panama, if they say something, it kind of just goes, whereas in the United States, if you say something and they don't like it, then citizens have a tendency to fight it. So that's what that one means. Individualism versus collectivism, it's the I versus we concept. So Panama had a low score, so they're collectivistic, meaning that they like to help those around each other. It's less of I want to get everything for me and more of I want to help my community rise. Whereas the United States is the opposite. They have a very high score, so they're an individualistic society, and it's more so I need to help myself grow and help my maybe immediate family grow, but that's about the extent of that one. Masculinity versus femininity. Panama has a lower score, so they are feminine, whereas the United States has a higher score, so they're masculine. So this essentially means that Panama is working in order to live, and the United States is living in order to work. So the United States is very boastful, and they like to talk about how amazing it is, what their successes are, whereas in Panama, it's less about your success doesn't derive from monetary value, it derives from being able to have free time to hang out with your family. Next, we have uncertainty avoidance, and it's exactly what it sounds like, avoiding uncertainty. Panama has a very high score, so they like their rigid belief codes, and they don't really go too mainstream with anything. They kind of like to stick with traditional values, whereas the United States does the opposite. They have a lower score, so they're open to trying new things. But the reason that one has a little height to it is because they are still a little traditional. So that's just some things to keep in mind. Next, we have long versus short-term orientation. Panama does not have a score, so I just kind of put long-term orientation because that was closer to 0. And then the United States does have a score, a very low score though, so they do have long-term orientation. And essentially the difference in these, it just depends on tradition again. So lower score has more, traditionally has more values that are traditional. So Americans are prone to analyze new information to check whether or not it's true. But this is kind of the ideology of thinking of how Americans have that good versus evil aspect to their mindset. So if you think of drugs or politics or anything else that's kind of like a big argument, that's why they have long-term orientation. And last but not least, we have indulgence versus restraint. Again, Panama did not have a score, so I put them with restraint because it was the closest to 0, and the United States had indulgent because they had a high score. And it's exactly like it sounds. The United States, you work hard and you play hard. You feed into your indulgences, whereas in Panama, you're raised to kind of hide your indulgences almost, and you work. And when you're done working, you can go into your indulgences, but it's looked upon more positively if you put aside your wants and desires and go towards something that'll help the community and help your family. So these are some examples. To the right is Panama, and to the left is America. The price for the nails in Panama were $25, and on the left, that would be $85. So this applies more towards individualism, that concept of having family, low prices, helping the community. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Whereas the United States is more in collectivism. I'm the best, so you pay me the most. Next, we have fine dining. Again, America is on the left, and Panama is on the right. This goes more towards uncertainty avoidance. They stick to what they like, which is why you see a traditional meal. The United States, it's a little bit more fancy. They don't have any problems with trying new things. Next, we have hairstyles. Panama's on the right and America's on the left. The price for the one in Panama would be $50, and in America, it could go anywhere from $200 to $500. So this is, again, with uncertainty avoidance, and then also making sure that you're helping the community. And lastly, a simple thing is bread. Panama's to the left, and that's individualism, and America's on the right. The bread on the left only costs $6, whereas the bread on the right costs $18. So it's, again, just looking out for your community. That individualistic ideology is really big. It's something that I saw as a big difference between the two. So again, this is the discussion question. In case you guys forgot, out of all of Hofstede's insight dimensions, which do you believe the most important? And lastly, here are your multiple choice questions. And that is the end of the slideshow. I hope you guys learned something.